How's it going, guys? It's John here from Hot Take Hockey. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, drop a like, and I want to hear your opinion on this video. This video is about NHL trade rumors to date. We're on December 20th, and let's talk about some trade rumors. So, for the Ottawa Senators, they're not in a playoff spot right now. They're the bottom half of the Atlantic Division, the bottom half of the NHL standings. So, for the Ottawa Senators, they have two pending UFAs in Matt Duchene and Mark Stone. For Mark Stone, I think they're a lot more eager to get a deal done for both players, of course. But Mark Stone, I think the feeling is a lot more mutual. I think Mark Stone does want to stay an Ottawa Senator. He's become a great leader on this team, and potentially, if he does resign long term, he will become the captain, most likely, of this team. You could also argue possibly Thomas Chabot with his break into the league. Of course, last year was his rookie year, but this year he's become the obvious talking point of the Ottawa Senators. He has become potentially their number one defenseman of the future, and it's definitely looking like that. But for Matt Duchene, this is a guy that they got from the Avalanche that a lot of people, including myself, made a bad deal, rushed into a bad deal, and potentially could lose a very high first-round pick this year. So if they do, in fact, start getting into trade talks with Matt Duchene, they're going to want a really good return back. Pat Brisson, Matt Duchene's agent, and Ottawa Senators Pierre Dorion and management they're going to need to get a conversation going, because I think Dorian's going to want Brisson and Duchene to make a decision by February, and if there's no clear path to a contract, I think Duchene will be talked about in trade talks towards the NHL trade deadline. For the St. Louis Blues, we've talked about Tarasenko, Pietrangelo, and Parayko. As crazy as that sounds in trade rumors, obviously the two more likely to move out would be Pietrangelo and Parayko. Probably more Pietrangelo, but Parayko's definitely there as well. I think Tarasenko on a pretty good contract, 7.5, considering what he can do. But the Blues, Doug Armstrong has to make a real decision here, because Pietrangelo still has a couple weeks left on his injury, and it's no secret they have goaltending issues. Jake Allen hasn't been a consistent goalie whatsoever, so they've got to make a decision. They've won 3 of their last 4 games. They've won, I think they're on a 5-3-1 record right now, so it's a matter of Mikey O is gone. Doug Berube's made a difference, so do they try to make their way back into the standings? If so, do they look at the goalie market? Do they look at a guy like Jimmy Howard possibly as an addition from the Red Wings? That's definitely something that they want to talk about. I think Doug Armstrong will have to make a decision ultimately sooner rather than later, and see how this team does for the rest of 2018, and leading into the trade deadline. For the Detroit Red Wings, the Red Wings are in a rebuild, and I just mentioned Jimmy Howard, but you've got to think about other names. Trevor Daley, Mike Green, Gustav Nyquist. It's gonna be really curious to see what the Red Wings do this year, and it's definitely those guys that pop up into those rumors. And let's talk about the Islanders. The Islanders have been deep in trade talks as well. Lou Lamoriello has been very busy. From different reports throughout Islanders beat reporters as well as Twitter. Lamoriello is the guy, he's always on the phone. He's always trying to work his magic. But the Islanders are in an interesting situation right now. They're in the 3rd spot in the Metro Division right now, just ahead of the Pittsburgh Penguins, tied for points actually currently. But the Islanders lost John Tavares, of course, but the Islanders have an opportunity here because of their underrated depth. If they could acquire a big name, a big piece before the trade deadline, they could actually possibly make the playoffs. They're in that spot right now, and I think Lamoriello is going to keep working the phones. Again, a guy I would look at with the Detroit Red Wings again is Gustav Nyquist. I think a few teams are going to be calling on a guy like Nyquist. I think, and also transitioning, I think a few teams are going to be calling to the LA Kings still. I think Tyler Toffoli's name has been tossed around. Jeff Carter. I think Jeff Carter is going to be wanted by quite a few teams, like the New York Islanders. If the New York Islanders could get their hands on Jeff Carter, then that'd make the 1-2 punch, Barzal, Carter, a little close to what they had last year with Tavares, Barzal. And you know what? The Islanders are doing a lot better at this this year at this point in the season rather than last year. So um, maybe they're a better team without Tavares, but that's a little bit of a hot take. But as well, the Kings are also going to be looking at Martinez, possibly Jake Muzzin, maybe even Dustin Brown. Dustin Brown was a contract they wanted to get rid of for a while. He's definitely played a lot better recently. And I mean, taken away this year, but last year he definitely stepped up. But for the LA Kings, I don't think there's a name besides possibly Drew Doughty and Anze Kopitar that they wouldn't trade at this point. I think at this point, even Jonathan Quick's in trade talks. Moving on to the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets still really aren't getting in huge trade talks. The only name or the only two names we've heard of is Josh Anderson and Alex Wenberg. I think trade talks could get really serious from Columbus' standpoint if Panarin and Bobrovsky got into those talks. But of course, Columbus is deep in the race right now. They could finish first or second in the Metro the way they're playing right now. So the Blue Jackets, if they stand at this point where they're at for the rest of the season, Jarmo Kekalainen is going to have a really tough decision to make based off what he knows and the negotiation process coming from Bobrovsky and Panarin's camps. So that's just a little update into the trade world, guys, and news. So please subscribe, drop a like, and comment. Peace out.